Hello everyone, welcome back to our welcome day, our afternoon session. And now we will learn a little bit of Czech. Maybe some of you already attended some of the language classes that are offered by Charles University, or maybe you learn a few Czech words somewhere else. But now you will have the opportunity to learn from the Czech teacher, from Mrs. Jirásková, who is here with us. So it's my pleasure to welcome her, and let's get to it and learn some Czech phrases, a little bit about Czech culture, because you really need it in the Czech Republic.
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Petra, as was said, and I am from Institute of Language and Preparatory Studies, which means that we teach Czech, but we teach Czech of specific topics, the topics that our students want to study here. A good teacher needs to have a good plan, so here is my plan. First of all, we will learn together some basic phrases. And for phrases, we need also pronunciation. So our second lesson, second part of this session is a bit of pronunciation and maybe some letters that are different than in your language. Then we will check if there is something similar in Czech and in English. If maybe the language is really so weird, or maybe there is something you could understand. And at the very end, we will just go around Prague together using words that we learned during the previous classes or sessions, and maybe some new ones. So let's go to learning. Dobrý den. Dobrý den. That's the very basic phrase you need to know. Dobrý den. Dobrý den. And together, dobrý den. Could you try it after me? Dobrý den. So that's the very first phrase you need to know anywhere you go. You say it in a shop, you say it at school, you say it in an elevator when you go together with someone else. When we match it with some other phrases, we can already make short conversation. So, dobrý den, já jsem Petra, a vy? So when I say it again, could you try to answer? Dobrý den, já jsem Petra, a vy? So maybe now you said dobrý den, já jsem, and your name. But we also need a word to say bye when we leave. It's quite hard and long, so it's better to learn it step by step. Altogether it sounds like nashledanou. But a good way how to learn it is first pronounce just some sounds of it. A, E, A, O. Could you try it together with me again? A, E, A, O. Now maybe a bit faster. A, E, A, O. Nashledanou. And all together, nashledanou. As you can see at the very end, there is a sound which is like kissing. Ooh. So, just again, because it's really hard and long, nashledanou. So now we can make a short conversation together. I am the green one, you are the orange one. First together, and then me and you in response. Dobrý den. Dobrý den. Já jsem Petra. A vy? And here you say, já jsem, and your name. And at the very end, nashledanou. Nashledanou. So how is it again? But now it's me and you. Dobrý den. Já jsem Petra. A vy? Naschledanou. Well, so now you can make short conversation in Czech and you know what to say when you enter a place or when you leave it. Of course, you will not introduce yourself in an elevator, but maybe sometimes you could. Now you can see how we write the words. Dobrý den, naschledanou, já jsem, and your name. And maybe you have recognized two things. First, that in Czech, very often we pronounce exactly what you see. So we pronounce each the letter. Dobrý den, naschledanou, já jsem. And the other thing, that some letters have signs around on top of them. So we will talk about these signs and how to pronounce them, what they mean. So now comes the section of pronunciation. The most important thing in Czech are these sounds. A, E, I, O, U. If you remember, when we were learning naschledanou, we started with them. A, E, A, O. And then we have built the whole word or phrase around them. Naschledanou. Here in the pictures you can see that sometimes your mouth is really open, sometimes it's rounded, sometimes it's thin. And here are the phrases we already know. Dobrý den, naschledanou, já jsem. And you can see these sounds in them. So, how to pronounce them? For A, it's the one where your mouth is really open, like if a bear is screaming. And we know the words na, from naschledanou, and já, from já jsem. So, could we pronounce it together? Na, já. And you can hear that the other one, the second one, já, is a bit longer. That's because of the sign on top of it. Na, já. And then in the words dobrý and naschledanou are the rounded sounds where your mouth is like in a kissing shape. O, U. Dobrý, naschledanou. So they are like in contrast. A, O, U. And then here we have the thin sounds, those where you need to smile. You smile a bit while pronouncing den from dobrý den and jsem from já jsem. And then the really smiling sound E. So your mouth is very thin and long and you smile a lot. Dobrý. So let's try it together. Den, jsem, it's E, and dobrý, I. So now our dialogue again, but now we already know the pronunciation even better than before. So let's try it together again with great Czech pronunciation. Dobrý den. Your part now. Já jsem Petra a vy? Naschledanou. So now you understand the meaning and you are able to pronounce it very well. The pronunciation is more important than any grammar in Czech at the very beginning, because if you make a mistake in grammar, it's still understandable. If you pronounce something like if it's your language and not Czech, people will not understand. So, dobrý den, já jsem, naschledanou. So we had these a, e, I, o, u, and now consonants. On top of consonants also can appear something. It's called hook, and it's the sign on top of them. In the first line you can see sounds which we pronounce j, sh, ch. So it's like cute whispering, or how to call it. J, sh, ch. Without these hooks, if you imagine them just like z, s and c, they would sound like z, s, ts. So like snake. The difference is quite big. Z, j, s, sh, ts, ch. So let's leave these snaky sounds and go to the other line. J, k, ny. With these you press your tongue up. J, k, ny. With j, k, you press it up in the middle. With ny, you press it up somewhere here. So it's like when you want to choke yourself. J, k, ny. And then comes the highlight of Czech. A sound which we are really proud about, and Czech people are very happy when they can say ž is typical Czech and it doesn't appear in any other language. So as you have heard, the pronunciation is ž. It's like vibration of your tongue. Ž. The thing is that it's not so important. It's not so important for understanding. If you pronounce it like ž in the word, it's still understandable. And also, not every Czech person is able to pronounce it. There are quite many people who pronounce it not very well, not properly. And also, when Czech kids learn to pronounce the language, sometimes they need help with this sound. Sometimes they need a person who teaches them how to pronounce it. So it's not so natural and it's not so easy, but it's something that we are proud about. Ž. Let's go through all of them together. First line, the sh, those, ž, sh, ch. Maybe you know them from your language, you just write them different. Second line, j, k, ny. So pressing the tongue up. And the last one, just try it for fun, ž, ž. So this group of sounds and letters have the hook on top of them. Then there is one more letter where 2 equals 1, which means we use 2 letters to represent one sound. And the sound sounds like red sleeping panda. So it's just long breathing. Or h, h. So just breathe out and use the voice. H. So when you see this combination in Czech, it can be confusing, because maybe it appears in your language as well and you pronounce it somehow different. So be careful. In Czech, h. Always remember sleeping panda. H. That was all about the pronunciation, the very, very basic things. And now we could check if there is something in our language, in Czech, that could be similar to English. First, look at the numbers. If you say them in English, maybe you can imagine which of them is tři. So imagine the pronunciation in English and then try to guess with me which of these numbers could be 3 in Czech. I believe you have guessed well, it's number 3. And here in the middle you can see again this r, so our favorite sound, 3. Another words which are similar in Czech, English and probably also other languages are words that belong to family members. So if you look at these words and if you know that they are some family members, maybe it's clear. Here you can see how context helps us to understand. So if you see the word sestra somewhere in the middle of white piece of paper, maybe you wouldn't imagine the meaning. But now if you know that it's a family member, it's clear, isn't it? How would we pronounce them? You will be able to pronounce them now, right? But let's try it together. Máma, sestra, syn, bratr. Just to make sure that you have understand it well, and also to show you that it doesn't work always, that sometimes family members are not so clear. So with mama, it's mom, and we would guess it. With tata, for dad, it's not so clear, right? Then we have here the words for daughter and son. Son, syn. Quite similar. But dcera, you would have to learn it and memorize it, right? Dcera, syn. And who are these two? Sestra, bratr. Here only pay attention that both of them have 2 syllables. Sestra, bratr. And we have in both of them groups of consonants, which sometimes are hard for pronunciation. So it needs to work on it, pronounce it slowly, try to pronounce the letters or sounds individually. Can we go through it together again? Máma, táta, dcera, syn, sestra, bratr. And here we have another words which maybe could be understandable. Můj for my, můj. Pošta, škola. Quite similar. Maybe when you see them written, it's not so clear, but when you hear them pronounced, pošta, škola, it's more clear. Then there is a word we already know from the basic greeting, dobrý den. So den, day. We could also imagine the meaning. And important word when you don't agree or don't want something, ne. Ne. So we can try them together. First of them, where we need to make the kiss sound, and it's long, so it's like even more kissing than usually. Můj. Then we have here these 2 buildings, and when you look at them, at the words, you can see that you need to switch from o to a. So from little kiss, o, to screaming bear, a. Pošta. So prepare your mouth for this change. O, a, o, a. Pošta, škola. But we don't speak like this, right? Pošta, škola. It's one word. Pošta, škola. Well, and then we have here 2 with this smiling sound. Den, ne. Den, ne. Fine. Let's continue. Now you can understand a bit about me. Já jsem Petra. Já jsem máma. Můj syn je Petr. You see? 15 minutes and you know a lot of Czech. You can understand when I tell you something about myself and my family. The other thing about the language is its flexibility. In Czech, it can be confusing if your language is not flexible, then maybe you wouldn't recognize that it's still the same word. So when we look at the first phrase, to je Praha, and maybe you have recognized the city in the picture, it's Prague. So to je Praha, to je. When you point to something, you say to je. And maybe you also know the word Praha. If you want to say how is called the building on top of it, to je Pražský hrad. So Prague, castle, but because it's not the Prague, but which castle, then the word is Pražský. And you can see that the base stays pra, but the ending is different. And thanks to the stable root of the word, we always recognize that it's the same word. And it can change even more. So when you say já jsem v Praze, so I am in Prague, because of this in, it changes again. Já jsem v Praze. And when you go there, you say já jedu do Prahy. So again, pra stays, but in every phrase the ending is different. And that's the flexibility. If you are going to learn Czech, you will meet this flexibility on every step. And maybe it seems to be confusing, but for us it's something natural and something that helps us to understand the context even better. So if we pronounce these phrases together, we say to je Praha, to je Pražský hrad, já jsem v Praze, já jedu do Prahy. So one more phrase about me. Já jsem Petra, já jsem máma, můj syn je Petr, já jsem v Praze. You see, you know my name, something about my family, and where do I live? Would you be able to say something like that about yourself? I believe you can. And now the Prague again. And because we know something about the language, its pronunciation, basic vocabulary, and we are able to say hello, dobrý den, when we enter a place and also introduce ourselves, we are ready to visit the city. As you can see in the picture, there are many bridges in Prague, and we will talk about one of them and also about other places. The great thing on this city is that you can walk through it and you can go through it by tram and see everything on quite a small area. So it's possible to make a walk and see many historical buildings and many beautiful historical places. And maybe it's good to know something about them. So how was it with Prague and its history? In 10th century, there lived a prince who was pronounced saint after his death, and he is a patron of our country, which means he protects us. And there is a square called after him. Here in the picture you can see him, and his name is Václav. So kníže Václav means Prince Václav. And you can find his statue in Prague where he is riding a horse. And for us also interesting is that the word for statue is socha. So, do you remember? H, sleeping panda. Maybe you would pronounce it somehow like, I don't want to tell you, it would confuse you and you would remember it. The right pronunciation is socha. So on top of this square is socha of Václav, and he's on a horse. The square is called Václavské náměstí. So Václav, again, do you remember the deflexibility and these weird things which happened with Prague? So the same happens to Václav. He becomes Václavské because it's like which square, and náměstí, the word for square. Václavské náměstí. It's the longest square in Prague, and people very often meet in front of this statue, and the typical phrase when you want to meet there is let's meet under the horse, because Václav is riding the horse on the statue. So when you are going to plan a meeting with your friends, and especially if your friends are Czech, you will meet under the horse. And where is it in the map? Here you can see map of the Prague center, and the square is here between these two metro stations. In 11th century there was the first Czech king. His name was Vratislav II. So král, the word for king, and here we have král Vratislav II, King Vratislav II. And the place where he lived was Vyšehrad. Do you remember the word hrad? It was again in this flexible Prague, Pražský hrad. So hrad means castle. And as you can see, it's on a hill and there is a river around, which is really great place to build a castle. You can protect it quite well. Around the castle, there is no more castle today. There is a church, kostel, and around the church there is a park. So park in English, park in Czech. You see, another word that you would understand. And behind the church there is a cemetery, and cemetery in Czech, hřbitov. So here again appears this ž. Is it your favorite one as well? And it's surrounded by consonants, so the pronunciation is even harder than usually. Hřbitov. But you don't need to go to the cemetery if you don't want to, but you can walk around Vyšehrad through the park and see beautiful views of Prague. And where is it in the map? You remember Václavské náměstí, and here you can see also the area of Vyšehrad. It's like 2 metro stations from Václavské náměstí and then a bit of walk. So when you want to move from one place to another, it takes like 15 minutes. And now comes the person you probably know. In 14th century, the most important and most famous Czech king, Charles IV, in Czech, Král Karel IV. And he lived in Pražský hrad, so the castle we already know. It's quite huge complex of buildings, and you can see also garden around it, and the word for garden is zahrada, so again the word hrad in the middle. The reason is that it usually was somewhere around the castle, so the word is made from the same root, hrad, zahrada. And in the middle of the castle you can see a building which is not church because it's much bigger, And when you see the word, it's another one which could be understandable. Katedrála. So we have here the king, Charles IV, and Pražský hrad, which is also on a hill. Our kings were quite smart. But this king wasn't famous for living in a castle. It's something that kings do always, right? So why was he so great? Why is he so famous? And why do we like him so much? Oh, sorry, first of all we need to see where the Prague castle is. So, again, 15 minutes from Vyšehrad or 15 minutes from Václavské náměstí. And now jump to the other reasons of Charles IV, the best and most famous king. And it's something you probably know, because you are going to study at the university which is called after him, and a university that he founded. In English, Charles University. In Czech, Karlova Univerzita. So you would be maybe able to recognize that Karlova is based on Karel, and the word Univerzita is also quite clear. And I have promised you that we will talk also about a bridge, and it's also a bridge dedicated to King Charles, and he initiated his building. Today it's called Karlův most or Charles Bridge, but originally it was called just Stone Bridge. And it was really important that there was a stone bridge across the river, because before it was just wooden bridge and it was quite dangerous to use it. So stone bridge, after years called Charles Bridge, because Charles IV founded it or initiated the building. And where can we find Karlova Univerzita and Karlův most in Prague? So let's go through the places we already know. Václavské náměstí. What was it? Do you remember? Václav, one of the princes, and náměstí, square. And it was between the two metro stations. Then we were talking about Vyšehrad, the area where we today can find a church, a park, and no castle anymore. But there is the word hrad, castle, in its name. Then we were talking about Prague Castle, not only because it's castle which you can find in Prague today, but also because the word Prague always changes. Praha, Pražský. And now, two places dedicated to Charles IV, Karlův most. You can see it here in the middle on the map, and there are no cars on it, it's just for people, so you can walk across the river and again see many beautiful places around. And the Charles University, Karlova Univerzita. This university is quite old, which means that it needs more and more buildings. So today it's not just only at one place, but the place I'm showing you on the map is the place where all the important ceremonies of the university take place. So when you graduate, you go there, and there is the ceremony. But buildings of the university are all around the Prague. So now we know something about the language, pronunciation, words that can be understandable, and also about the city. I'm sure that you want to walk through it or use a tram and see all these beautiful places and even more, because of course it's not only these. But we should not remember that Czech people always appreciate if you use something in Czech. So let's go through it again. Dobrý den. What do you say? Dobrý den. Well, Já jsem Petra. A vy? Já jsem and your name. Naschledanou. Naschledanou. Okay, again, me and you. Green and orange. Dobrý den. Já jsem Petra. A vy? Naschledanou. And that's all. Naschledanou.